The galactic embassy of Sol shimmered like silver glass under the light of a distant sun. It stood on the capital planet of the Zyre Dominion, home to hundreds of alien species. Humans were the newest members of the Galactic Council, and though they had proven their usefulness in trade and technology, most of the older races still looked down on them. Inside one of the embassy halls, Ambassador Arlen Voss, the Ixier diplomat, floated proudly on his anti-gravity throne. His scaled body glittered with gold patterns, his eyes glowing faint blue, a sign of nobility among his kind. He was known for his arrogance and strict belief that the Xeriar species were born to lead. In front of him stood a small group of human delegates. Among them was Lieutenant Commander Sarah Holt, a junior officer assigned as a communications assistant. She wasn't supposed to speak much, just translate when necessary and take notes for her superior. Ambassador Ethan Cross, the HFY diplomat, didn't even look at her. "Ah, the humans," Arlen said, his voice smooth but filled with cold pride. "Your species progresses fast for such primitive origins. It is impressive in the same way a child learning to run is impressive." Ambassador Cross smiled politely, choosing not to rise to the insult. "We're grateful for the Council's cooperation, Ambassador Voss. Humanity has much to offer." Arlen waved a claw lazily, dismissing him. Yes. Your species is eager, perhaps too eager. But let us be clear. The Xer Dominion still leads. You may follow." Sarah bit her lip. She had been warned not to speak unless addressed. Still something inside her stirred. The way he spoke, and as if humans were pets, not partners, lit a quiet fire in her chest. The meeting continued for hours. Discussions about trade routes, defense treaties, and communication protocols dragged on. The HFY delegates kept making demands, expecting humanity to agree to their terms without question. Sarah noticed how her own ambassador kept trying to remain calm, diplomatic, polite. At one point, the translator drones malfunctioned. A flicker of static ran across the room. Sarah quickly stepped forward and adjusted the holographic interface. The display stabilized and the alien language flowed back into readable text. Arlen gave her a glance, just one, and then looked away again. "Ah, humans and their toys," he murmured almost to himself. Sarah pretended not to hear, but her hands tightened on her datapad. When the meeting ended, the humans returned to their quarters. Ambassador Cross sighed deeply. "These Gair, they think we're still climbing out of caves," he muttered. "Don't let it bother you, Lieutenant." Sarah smiled faintly. "It doesn't bother me, sir," she said. "But I think they underestimate us," Cross chuckled. "That's not new. Just stay sharp, Holt. You might get your chance to prove them wrong someday." The next morning, the human team was invited to a grand diplomatic reception in the Xer Capitol Dome, a floating palace of glass and crystal, where the elites of the galaxy gathered to mingle. The event was meant to celebrate unity, though everyone knew it was more about showing off HFY wealth and dominance. Sarah followed her team into the hall. Her uniform was freshly pressed, her translator earpiece glowing faintly blue. She kept close to the others, trying to stay unnoticed. The room sparkled with alien guests, tall insectoid traders, glowing energy beings, feathered diplomats, and the towering Zyre nobles. Music from 100 worlds echoed softly. Arlen Voss stood in the center, surrounded by admirers. When the humans entered, a few heads turned. Some of the aliens whispered in their native tongues, curious, skeptical, amused. Arlen spotted them and gave a thin smile. "Ambassador Cross," he said smoothly. "Welcome. I trust you are comfortable in our capital?" "Very much so," Cross replied. "Your hospitality is generous." Arlen's eyes flicked briefly toward Sarah, who stood slightly behind her superior. "And you brought your assistant again," he said with faint amusement. "Tell me, what does she do? Carry your datapads?" Sarah flushed slightly but stayed silent. Cross tried to redirect the conversation, but Arlen wasn't finished. "She must be quite brave," Arlen continued, smirking, "to stand among those who shape the stars." Sarah took a slow breath. Something in his tone and that cruel amusement snapped the restraint she had been holding. She straightened her back and looked directly at him. "Actually, sir," she said calmly, "I designed the encryption system that keeps your trade routes safe from pirates. So yes, I carry datapads, the kind that protect your empire's economy." The room fell silent. Even the background music seemed to fade. Arlen's smile froze. His blue eyes flickered once, A nearby alien diplomat, a feathery being from the Zay Coalition, let out a soft, chirping laugh. A few others followed. Arlen's expression darkened. He gave a short, stiff nod. I see. Perhaps I underestimated your position. Ambassador Cross looked like he wanted to both apologize and congratulate her at the same time. Lieutenant, he said quietly, perhaps we should... But before he could finish, an alarm blared through the hall. Red lights flashed. A robotic voice echoed through the comm system. Security alert. Unidentified vessel entering orbital space. The celebration broke into chaos. Diplomats shouted. Guards rushed to their posts and holographic displays flickered to show the sky outside. A large ship descending fast. Arlen turned toward the screen, frowning. That ship bears no Dominion or Council code. Sarah quickly accessed her wrist console. Data streamed across her display. Her eyes widened. It's a raider vessel, maybe pirates or mercenaries. They've bypassed the defense network somehow. Arlen looked shocked. Impossible. Our systems are impenetrable. Sarah didn't argue. She simply started typing. Her fingers flew across the interface. They're using an old Dominion protocol, one that was deactivated a decade ago but still hidden in your archive. Ambassador Cross stepped forward. Can you block them? I can try, Sarah said, sweat forming on her brow. But I need access to the main defense grid. Arlen hesitated. That system is restricted to Dominion Command. Sarah looked up sharply. Then enjoy your pride while your planet burns, she snapped. For a long second, Arlen stared at her, this small, defiant human woman challenging his authority. Then he gave a short growl and gestured to the guards. Grant her access, he ordered. Within seconds, Sarah connected to the grid. Her mind raced as she rewrote the encryption patterns, patched outdated firewalls, and forced a full system reboot. The alien codes twisted together like living data, complex, fluid, alien. Finally, she pressed one final command. The ship on the display exploded in a burst of white light. The shockwave rippled harmlessly through the upper atmosphere. Silence followed. Then a cheer rose through the hall. Dozens of voices from dozens of species. Sarah exhaled, trembling. System secure, she said softly. Arlen stared at her, his pride burning beneath the surface. For the first time in his long diplomatic career, the great Zir ambassador had been saved by a human he once ignored. He looked down at her and spoke quietly. Lieutenant Holt, it seems I owe you. Gratitude, Sarah gave a small, tired smile. Just doing my job, sir. But inside, every human in the room felt something shift. A silent acknowledgement that humanity was no longer the junior species in the galaxy. The following day, the entire galactic embassy buzzed with talk about what had happened at the HFY Capitol Dome. The story spread fast, faster than any official report. A human had stopped a pirate attack using nothing but a portable console and quick thinking. For most species, it was just another rumor. But for the HFYer, who valued hierarchy and status above all else, it was a deep humiliation. Their greatest diplomat saved by a human assistant, Arlen Voss. The proud ambassador sat alone in his private chamber. The golden light of his home star glowed through the tall glass windows. His claws tapped the arm of his floating chair, his expression unreadable. He had spent years building his reputation, cold, perfect, untouchable. And now, every whisper in the halls of the Dominion mentioned his name with one phrase. The human saved him. His assistant, a younger Zaire named Kalon, entered quietly. Sir, he said carefully, the Council has requested a formal report on the incident. They wish to include the human's name in the commendation. Arlen's eyes narrowed. They wish to honor her? Kellen nodded. Yes, sir. Lieutenant Sarah Holt of the Terran Alliance. The Council believes her quick actions prevented the loss of thousands of lives. Even the High Chancellor expressed admiration. Arlen was silent for a long moment. So, he murmured finally, the humans are to be celebrated for fixing our systems? Kellen hesitated. It seems so, sir. Arlen's eyes glowed faintly brighter, a sign of suppressed emotion. Very well, he said at last. Prepare the report. I will sign it, but his voice was tight. His pride, so long his shield, now felt like a chain around his neck. Meanwhile, in the human quarters, Sarah sat in her small diplomatic suite, staring at the stars outside her window. Her console was filled with congratulatory messages, from Earth, from the Terran Navy, even from captains she'd never met. Ambassador Cross entered, smiling proudly. "Lieutenant Holt, you've made quite a name for yourself. The Council has called your actions a model of initiative and cooperation. You're going to be famous." Sarah gave a shy smile. "I wasn't trying to be famous, sir. I just did what needed to be done," Cross chuckled. "That's exactly why it worked. Still expect attention. The Council's media channels love a good human hero story, especially one that humbles the Dominion." Sarah's expression softened. "Do you think I embarrassed him too much?" Cross raised an eyebrow. "Arlen Voss? That man could use a little humility. Don't worry, you didn't insult him. You just saved him. The rest is his problem." Still, Sarah couldn't shake a feeling of unease. Pride was a fragile thing, especially among the Zir, and a wounded diplomat could be more dangerous than any raidership. The Council Assembly, 2 days later, a grand meeting was held in the Galactic Council Hall, a circular chamber that floated high above the capital city. Delegates from dozens of species attended, their holographic banners glowing in the air. Sarah stood quietly beside Ambassador Cross as the human delegation took their place. Across the hall, Arlen Voss sat among the XYR representatives, his golden scales gleaming under the lights. His face was calm, but his posture was stiff. The High Chancellor, a serene creature made of translucent light, began the session. "Today," it said, "we commend Lieutenant Sarah Holt of the Terran Alliance for her decisive action during the security breach. Without her, the Capitol Dome may have suffered great loss." Applause filled the chamber. The humans looked proud. Sarah felt her heart race. Then the Chancellor continued, "We also recognize Ambassador Arlen Voss for authorizing her emergency access, demonstrating trust between our peoples." There was polite applause, but everyone knew whose name carried the real weight. Arlen rose slowly, his expression smooth. "The Exire Dominion appreciates the lieutenant's service," he said calmly. "Her quick thinking reflects the best of humanity's potential." The words were careful, measured, a diplomat's mask. Yet behind them, Sarah could feel the sting of restrained pride. After the ceremony, when the delegates were mingling, Arlen approached her. His tall figure cast a long shadow as he stopped in front of her. "Lieutenant Holt," he said. Sarah straightened. "Ambassador Voss." There was a long silence before he spoke again. "You handled yourself well during the incident. I owe you my gratitude." "Thank you, sir," she said simply. Arlen studied her face as if trying to find arrogance there, but there was none. Just calm sincerity. That unsettled him even more. "Perhaps," he said finally, "you and I might speak further. There is more I wish to understand about human methods." Sarah nodded, unsure what he meant, but willing to listen. A conversation between worlds. That evening, Sarah was invited to Arlen's private office. The room was lined with holographic scrolls, ancient Zir texts mixed with data displays. Arlen gestured toward a seat. "You humans fascinate me," he began. "You rise quickly, learn faster than any other species I have encountered. Yet your technology is rough, your methods unpredictable." Sarah smiled politely. "Maybe that's why we survive. We don't wait for permission." Arlen gave a low hum, almost a laugh. "Yes, I've noticed." He paused, his expression thoughtful. "Tell me, Lieutenant, when you defied my command during the crisis, did you not fear the consequences?" Sarah met his gaze. "I feared failure more than punishment. Lives were at risk. I couldn't think about pride or protocol." Her words struck something deep inside him. For years, Arlen had believed that pride and control were the foundation of power. Yet here was this human, small, soft-spoken, unranked, who acted without hesitation and saved everything he represented. He stood silently for a while. Then he said quietly, "In the Dominion, pride defines us, but perhaps it also blinds us." Sarah said nothing. She knew that for someone like him, admitting that much was enormous. Finally, Arlen turned to face the window. "The Council will soon debate new leadership for the Joint Defense Network. I suspect your name will come up." Sarah blinked in surprise. "Mine?" "Yes," he said. "You understand both human and Dominion systems. You could lead the integration project, Ian, if you accept." She hesitated. "Wouldn't that anger the Dominion? A human leading their network?" Arlen's lips curved slightly. It will, but perhaps it is time they learned humility. Sarah smiled softly. Are you sure you're ready for that lesson too, Ambassador? He looked back at her, and this time he actually smiled. Perhaps, he said. I already started learning it the moment you refused to obey me. The storm behind the curtain, but not everyone in the Dominion was pleased. Deep within the palace, several high-ranking XYR counselors gathered in secret. Their voices hissed low and angry. This human humiliated our ambassador, one said. Now she is being rewarded with leadership. Unacceptable, another nodded. Arlen Voss has grown weak. He allows these creatures to rise unchecked. We must remind the galaxy who truly rules. Plans began to form. Subtle sabotage, manipulation of votes, whispers to turn other species against humanity. The Dominion had no intention of sharing power easily. Unaware of this, Sarah continued her work. She began training with both human and Zwire engineers, preparing to merge their defense systems. She was constantly busy, analyzing old Dominion code, fixing flaws, building new firewalls. Sometimes Arlen would visit her lab. Their conversations had grown easier. He still carried his pride, but it had softened. No longer arrogance, but confidence shaped by respect. You're humans, he said one evening, watching her work. Build things as if expecting them to break. Sarah smiled. That's because we know they will. The trick is making them easy to fix. He tilted his head. And that's what makes you dangerous. Dangerous? She laughed. Yes, he said almost admiringly, because you never give up. Even your failures make you stronger. The shadow of betrayal one night, alarms blared again, this time deeper, more urgent. Sarah ran to the command center, where glowing red symbols filled the air. Arlen was already there, his voice sharp. Our systems are being overridden, what from inside the network? Sarah's eyes widened. An internal breach? But I just secured these systems. Arlen growled. Then someone inside the Dominion has betrayed us. As screens flickered and codes cascaded out of control, Sarah realized that her success had painted a target on both their backs, and this time, it wasn't just about pride, it was about survival. The Galactic Embassy was in chaos. Red alarms flared across every hall, and the warning sirens echoed like a storm in the silence of space. The breach in the defense network was not accidental. It was deliberate. Someone from inside the HFY Dominion sought to exploit the very system that Sarah Holt had just rebuilt. Sarah rushed through the corridors, her console strapped to her wrist, codes streaming across her display. Beside her, Ambassador Arlen Voss moved with unusual urgency, his long claws tapping against the anti-gravity floor as he issued rapid commands to the security teams. We cannot let this breach spread, Arlen growled. If the attackers gain control of the orbital defenses, the capital city will fall within minutes. Sarah nodded, already analyzing the cascade of compromised nodes. It's a sophisticated attack, she said. They're using Dominion protocols, but modified to bypass the usual security triggers. Someone inside knows exactly how to push our systems to fail. Arlen's glowing eyes narrowed. A traitor, he hissed. One of our own. Forming an unlikely alliance. The tension in the control room was palpable. Gaudier engineers hovered over holographic consoles, their delicate fingers typing furiously, while human technicians coordinated via comm links. Lieutenant Holt, Arlen said, his voice steady but firm. You will lead the countermeasure. I will handle the Dominion personnel. The traitor must not escape. Sarah looked up at him, surprised by the trust he placed in her. Understood, sir, she replied, her voice calm. We'll stop this together. For the first time, humans and Exir worked side by side, their systems merging seamlessly under Sarah's guidance. Algorithms clashed with alien protocols, sparks of code flying across holographic displays, each one a strike against the unseen intruder. Minutes passed like hours. Every second felt like a lifetime. The intruder was clever, constantly adapting, but Sarah's mind was faster. She anticipated moves before they happened, shutting down compromised nodes and redirecting the network's power to defensive channels. Arlen, meanwhile, coordinated the security teams, blocking physical access to the control nodes and interrogating suspicious personnel. His authority, once unquestionable, now had to coexist with Sarah's ingenuity. Pride and humility collided in an unprecedented alliance. The traitor revealed finally a pattern emerged. The intruder had left a trace, a single code signature repeated across multiple nodes. Sarah's eyes widened as she identified it. "It's Kalen," she said quietly. "Your assistant, the one who first reported the council commendation." Arlen froze. "Impossible. He is loyal." Sarah shook her head. "He may be loyal to himself, not to the Dominion. Look, he manipulated the system to create chaos, likely hoping to discredit you and humans simultaneously." Arlen's jaw tightened. "Then we act now. Seal the control room and no one leaves until I speak to him." Security doors slammed shut and Kalen was brought before them. The young Zir's golden scales glimmered nervously, sweat beading on his forehead. "Ambassador, I only wanted— You betrayed your people," Arlen snapped. "You endangered thousands. Why?" Kalen faltered. I thought humans would take control. That you would fail. I wanted to prove Xyre's superiority, to protect our legacy." Sarah stepped forward. "You tried to destroy a city to prove a point? That's not leadership. That's fear." Arlen's eyes met hers. He gave a subtle nod, a silent acknowledgement that her words carried weight. "Fear is not strength," he said, his voice resonant. "Loyalty is measured in courage, not control. Take him to detention. The council will decide his fate." Kellen was led away, muttering as the breach slowly stabilized. Humanity's moment. With the intruder neutralized, Sarah focused on finishing the system lockdown. Her fingers danced across the interface, reinforcing firewalls, patching vulnerabilities, and creating adaptive defense protocols that no single species could easily compromise. Finally, she pressed the last command. A green pulse swept across the network display, signaling success. The orbital defenses hummed with renewed energy. The capital city was safe. The room erupted in quiet cheers. Humans and Xyre alike looked at her with respect, some with surprise, others with genuine admiration. Arlen approached her, his glowing eyes softer than ever. "Lieutenant Holt, you have done more than save this city. You have reminded us all that true strength lies in action, not pride." Sarah shook her head, smiling faintly. "I only did what was necessary, sir. We all played our part." "No," Arlen said, his voice carrying the weight of years. "You led and I learned something about humility and humanity that I cannot forget." The Galactic Council honors Humanity days later. The Council convened to formally recognize the efforts that had averted disaster. Holographic reports of Sarah's actions were projected in the Grand Hall. Delegates from countless species watched in awe as she explained the breach, the intruder's methods, and the countermeasures she had implemented. The High Chancellor rose, its translucent form shimmering. "Lieutenant Sarah Holt of the Terran Alliance has shown exceptional courage, intelligence, and leadership. Humanity has proven that it is not merely a junior member of the galaxy, but a vital force capable of shaping its future." Applause filled the hall. For the first time, humans were not just respected, they were admired, even feared in the best way, for their ingenuity, determination, and courage. Arlen Voss stood beside her, his pride humbled but intact. "I once underestimated you," he admitted quietly. "I no longer will," Sarah smiled. "And I'll keep proving it, sir, as long as I'm needed." The aftermath weeks passed and the galaxy slowly returned to normal. But something had changed. Arlen Voss, once a symbol of Xyre arrogance, now carried a quiet respect for humans. The Dominion itself began to reconsider the rigid hierarchy it had long enforced. Sarah, promoted to lead the integration of interstellar defense systems, worked tirelessly to create a network that combined human ingenuity with Xyre precision. The project was challenging, but every problem she solved strengthened her reputation and the bond between species. Even the other diplomats, once dismissive of humans, began seeking her counsel. Her courage and intelligence became a benchmark, a symbol of humanity's rising stature in the galaxy. And though she never sought praise, Sarah felt a quiet satisfaction. Not from awards or recognition, but from knowing that her species, small, underestimated, and often ignored, had once again risen to meet the impossible. A moment of reflection. One evening, as the twin moons of the Xyre capital rose over the skyline, Arlen and Sarah stood together, overlooking the city. "You have changed much here," Arlen said softly. Sarah nodded. "And you've changed too, sir. You trusted me when it mattered most." Arlen's glow softened, a rare sight. Perhaps pride is not a weakness. If it can recognize courage in others. Sarah laughed lightly. Then maybe one day you'll finally admit humans are worth more than you thought. Arlen inclined his head, a faint smile on his scaled lips. Perhaps, Lieutenant Holt. Perhaps. The stars above twinkled, indifferent yet beautiful as humanity's place in the galaxy became undeniable. And for the first time, many beings realized that when humans stood together, there was no challenge they could not face. Not arrogance, not betrayal, not even the vastness of space itself.